Hey y'all, I'm Marin, and for those of y'all who don't know me, which is probably the majority of you, I'm in 8th grade. And aside from my love from Jesus, I'm just slightly obsessed with running, peanut butter, High School Musical, Birkenstocks, and a dog named Bumble. And as much as I'd love to just talk about running all day, because Lord knows I definitely could, I'm actually up here to share my story. But before I can get to that, I need to start with how I ended up here. Not just sharing my story in this room tonight, but actually here, in this church, in this town, with these people today. I'm going to open with a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing me here tonight. Thank you for leading me to this place and planning out my life better than I ever could have. Please bless my words so that they are yours and not my own, especially because I'm pretty terrified to be standing here right now. Thank you for everyone here tonight and all of your children around the world. Help us live for you and you only. Amen. Woo. If I'm going to be completely honest with y'all, I did not enjoy church as a kid. Most of this was due to the fact that our family didn't really have a church home. Although I had been baptized in the Methodist church we were members of, my family moved to the other side of town right after I was born and decided we needed to find a new church. It seemed like we were always trying out different churches, and none of them ever stuck for more than a year. I hated the feeling of walking into Sunday school alone every single week, and so church was never where I wanted to be. I knew who God was and what He did for me, but the relationship ended there. Thankfully, after years of bouncing around the churches in our area, we came upon one that seemed to work. It took a little while, but before too long, I started looking forward to going. I was finally old enough for youth group, and I signed up for my first mission trip as soon as I had enough service hours to go. I ended up surrendering my life to Christ on that trip, and I think that without that trip, I'd be nowhere near the person I am today. After that, I really started throwing myself into the church. I'd never miss a youth group and finally had a great group of friends to share my faith with. But then the unthinkable happened. My parents said we were moving. My dad had gotten a job at Stanford and claimed that God was leading him and my mom to some place called Homeland in Alabama. I had absolutely no idea what to expect. Sure, starting over might be exciting, but what about my friends? What about my church family? It had taken me so long to finally find a church where I felt comfortable and connected to God, and now I'd have to start all over again. I didn't understand what the heck God thought He was doing. Why in the world would He take me away from the people that helped me feel closest to Him? But I decided to push all my feelings away and just try and enjoy the last couple months I had with my friends. I had planned to spend my last full week at home on a mission trip with my youth group, even though it would mean being away from where I lived a week earlier than I had to be. But I stuck to my decision and loved every second of the trip until it hit me. This was it. This was the last time that I'd be with these people in this place. And even if I didn't want to move on, I was going to have to eventually. I started to convince myself that there was just no way that God would be able to get me to this feeling of total belonging and closeness with Him somewhere different. I had been feeling so close to my Heavenly Father, but now I just felt confused. There were so many unknowns, and I didn't have the faith that God knew what He was doing with my life at all. Was I ever wrong? The first Sunday I was in Homewood, I came to Trinity. My dad had been going here while I was still in Florida, and he thought that it would be a good church home for us as a family. I didn't really get much out of my first service since I was too busy taking everything in, but all I can remember is being paranoid about Sunday school. After church, my mom had to basically drive me to the Haven. I was not ready to accept that we had actually moved yet, and meeting new people was the absolute last thing I wanted to do with my summer. But despite my unwillingness, I made it to the Haven and met Smezzy, who told us all we needed to know about Element and the crazy amount of things they have going on all the time. But as great as it all sounded, I wasn't hopeful. I just didn't think that there was any way that I was going to fit in. If this church was anything like the rest of the ones I'd been to during my lifetime, I had a long way to go until I found anyone who would talk to me. And I wasn't totally wrong. The first couple months I lived here, all I could think about was everything I was missing out on at home. I would see pictures of my friends at youth group having fun together, and I'd want to be anywhere except where I was. It just didn't seem fair that God had taken me through so much just to have me start all over. This went on for a while, until one day someone told my mom about Fusion. For those of y'all who don't know what Fusion is, it's the name for a small group separated by grade and gender that meet here at church on Wednesday nights. I was super doubtful at first, especially since I didn't know a single soul that went, but my mom brought me in anyway. The first couple of weeks were a little uncomfortable. I wasn't sure what to say, and I hardly knew anyone, but for some reason I kept coming back. If you asked me why, I honestly couldn't tell you. I wasn't best friends with anyone yet for sure, and I still didn't really feel that comfortable talking to people. But there was just something about gathering together with other girls to talk about our faith that made my heart happy. Now the girls in my fusion group are some of my best friends. As winter rolled around, I started hearing about sign-ups for Discovery. I didn't really know what the big deal was, but my mom signed me up anyway, shocker, so it looked like I would be going. I kind of forgot about it until the week before, and then all of a sudden everyone started talking about what to pack and who was going and whose D group they wanted to be in. Without meaning to, my nerves started kicking in. Going to Discovery would mean fully accepting that I was in a new place with new people, and that they were going to be my new church family. And that absolutely terrified me. But like everything else, I went anyway. Even though I hadn't been prepared for Discovery, God had been planning my Discovery experience before signups even entered my mind. I was put in a D group with one of my fusion leaders, and had a couple girls from my group in my D group as well. So I finally started to feel a little bit more excited about the weekend. The first night of Discovery was kind of like my first Sunday at Trinity. I was a little overwhelmed just trying to soak everything in. There were so many more people than had ever been in my church at home, and I couldn't get over that God had called so many people to come to this place and worship Him. In fact, I still don't think I'm over that. I'd always believed that God had a plan for our lives, and that He puts us through trials for a purpose greater than what we can see. But I never truly understood what that meant until I came here. God turned all of my doubt and uncertainty about going to Discovery into endless ways of revealing His presence to me. Although those little sprinkles of Jesus usually resulted in me breaking down in tears, I just couldn't get over how blessed I was that God chose for me to be here. All weekend, I was surrounded by people I love more than anything, yet I didn't know a single one of them a year ago. And if you'd asked me if I thought I would be friends with any of them, I would probably have told you no. God knew exactly what I needed before I even knew that I needed anything at all. Thank goodness God doesn't leave us in control of our own lives. Allowing Him to be in control brings us blessings greater than anything we could ever dream up by ourselves. So where am I now, after all this? Well, I'm still the same person I've always been. I still would rather go on a run than deal with my problems, and I still eat unhealthy amounts of peanut butter, which I do not regret. But in all seriousness, I'm here in front of y'all tonight because of God. Sure, my life isn't perfect. I still have plenty of struggles, and I make mistakes all the time. But now I know that every part of my life was planned out by God. Trusting in God doesn't exempt us from trouble or failure. My life is living proof of that. But one amazing example of someone who has trusted in God is Jim Elliott. He was a missionary in Ecuador in the late 50s who was killed for living out his kingdom purpose. His wife, Elizabeth Elliott, has continued to trust in God, even after the devastating tragedy of losing her husband. She never stopped pursuing God. Elizabeth Elliott says, "I have one desire now, to live a life of reckless abandon for the Lord, putting all my strength and energy into it." I pray that we can all do the same. We all pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. Thank you for giving me the words to share your word with your people. Guide me as I continue to pursue you and help me bring others to you. Amen.